get started, the numbers coming in has slowed down a little bit. So if you are ready to go, I will kick us off. So welcome everyone to another installment of webinars for busy lawyers. This one again entitled From Burnout to Brainpower, Neuroscience Intelligence for Health, Focus, and Performance. We're very excited to have you here. And I think Ava is excited to be here. So this is part 2 of our 2-part series. And if you missed the first one from Thursday, January 29th, you can still watch the recorded version on our digital library on our website. And I'm going to introduce our speaker, Ava Diamond Dreyer, momentarily. First, I'm Amy Levine, Director of Programs and Volunteers. I'm going to be your host for today. And before we begin, I always like to remind people what we do here at LCL. So we are confidential and free services for lawyers in the entire legal community, and we offer support of the well-being, again, of the legal community. So the services we offer: one-on-one consultations with licensed clinicians for mental health and substance use concerns, support groups, educational programs, and one-on-one consultations with our law practice advisor on firm management and professionalism. And a few housekeeping notes. We love questions. Please feel free to submit those questions using the chat feature, and we'll answer those when we can throughout the webinar. Without further ado, I'm pleased to introduce Ava. Ava is the founder of NQ Coaching and is the creator of Neuroscience Intelligence, NQ. She is a licensed psychotherapist certified in nutritional psychology, neuroscience and leadership, brain health, trauma recovery, and addiction recovery through years of formal education and decades of clinical experience. Additionally, she is a best-selling author, educator, speaker, former pro fitness competitor, and has 30 plus years of researching, developing, and implementing life-changing programs. I encourage you to read her full bio on her website. And without further ado, I'm handing it off to Ava.
Thank you, Amy. Such a pleasure to return. Just a quick note about neuroscience intelligence, NQ. We know that there's IQ, right? And most have really high functioning, great IQs here. And we know that EQ, emotional intelligence, has been a very important movement, I think, since the 80s, right? But here's what I'm going to tell you. Without NQ, neuroscience intelligence, neither of those two other Qs are going to show up the way they potentially can. They're not going to reach their potential for you. Neuroscience intelligence is about understanding and optimizing your chemistry and your biorhythms for cognitive, emotional, physical energies, right? So without really understanding those things, emotional intelligence can't be utilized as well, and even your IQ will not be utilized as well. Okay? Healthgevity and thrivability. I make up words all the time. I love my words. And healthgevity is bringing health into alignment with longevity. It's not there yet. Health and high performance aligned with longevity. That's what we're going for here. Thrivability, another favorite word of mine, is about how do we really actually thrive on all fronts, personally and professionally, physically, cognitively, and emotionally. And today is part 2. I'm going to tell you right now, there is so much I want to share with you. And in this brief period of time, I can't. So, you're going to hear more to think about. You're going to learn strategies again today. You got them the first time. We're going to check in with how they worked for you. And if you want more, you'll find out how to get more. Okay? So let's see. There we go. This is what thrivability consists of. These are the pillars of my program. And what I'd like you to start to really think about is how you create a fabric or a puzzle, a whole puzzle with different pieces of wellness and performance efforts. Because too often I hear that people are trying to reach their goals and they're doing that because they're doing this one thing, or they're maybe doing two things. but we are complex. We need different puzzle pieces to get locked into place in order for us to actually thrive. Now, I'm looking and I see these little notes about popping up about questions. Are there questions, Amy?
Yeah, so one person was asking if others are hearing an echo. I do not hear the echo. So I'm not sure if it's a specific issue to your computer. So,
Okay.
and somebody else is saying no echo for them.
Okay. So today you're going to hear more about the pillars of my program. And each pillar, there is approximately 30 to 35, sometimes 40 strategies in each one. You're not getting all of that today, my friends. But nutritional psychology, I'm certified in nutritional psychology. It is about how to eat, what to eat, and when to eat. Nutrients for the energies that you're looking for to actually help your internal environment where we have healthy control over that environment far greater than we have control over that environment outside of us, right? So we are going to learn how to have healthy control over our systems. Specialized mindset, I'm a big fan of positive thinking, but that's not what this is about. Specialized mindset is about how do you actually generate anchors you're going to learn about today using cognitive neuro-linguistic programming, right, to help you to really harness, again, healthy control.
So,
Restoration are
oh,
the bigger strategies that allow you to fully restore brain-body balance. And unique movement, Amy mentioned that I was a pro fitness competitor, glorified hobby. 47 years old is when I dove into it, and I competed until I was 52. I can talk about exercise all day long, but I'm not. Unique movement is how to move to optimize your chemistry and biorhythms to lower your cortisol stress chemical. And this is what it looks like. We're focused on how to reduce stress, how to increase motivation, and how to stabilize mood and well being. Okay?
we do have a question, Ava. Somebody asks, is this epigenetic related?
So is it epigenetically
Yeah.
related? Um, yes, and that's a big question, a great question. And I invite you to connect with me outside of here so we can really talk more about that. But for today, I want to really get practical here and focus on the content here. So whoever you are, thank you for asking that. Please reach out to me so we can talk about it, okay? Many people have already heard about the gut brain axis, yes? How there's this like little brain in your belly and how it communicates with your brain. It produces the precursors for different hormones, chemicals that really dictate how we think, feel, and move. Um, so what I like to focus on is more of a tri-axis, not just gut brain, but also including the heart, because that is a very important um, interacting system we have here. Again, if you look at this, you'll see this is complex. This is more than, really we would dive into in a 1 hour program. But I have the information for you. You can reach out to me. We can talk more deeply about these things. The point I want to make here today, though, is that we are a big interacting system inside. And the more we can remember that and use the strategies you're about to hear to create that puzzle or mosaic approach to self care, we're going to be mastering this communication domain between heart, gut, and brain. Okay? So here we go. Do you recognize this? This is from part one. This was your daily plan. Anybody, here you go. Open up the pathways of communication between us right now. Anybody try these strategies? One, two, all of them? Anybody have experience they want to share?
Sure, it's going to take just a moment for folks to type. I did, while we're waiting, I did try the strategic sunlight. So
Uh-huh.
that was I never really thought about it. So yeah, I more in the morning as
Yep.
I look.
Good. And so Amy just mentioned as we were getting on that Andrew Huberman, she listened to an Andrew Huberman interview. Andrew Huberman is an incredible neuroscience researcher from Stanford University. He talks a lot about strategic sunlight. So if you look up the Huberman Labs, you'll find some fabulous information in there. I did see that somebody popped into the chat. Yes?
Yes, so somebody said I tried no screens for the first 15 minutes and it's been helpful. We have somebody else who said I stopped reading the news in bed before I got up, extremely helpful. And somebody else wrote, I've had a 4 a.m. wake up for many years now. And if I miss this, even my kids beg me to not forget again. My struggle is with water and eating.
Okay, well, we're going to talk a lot about nutritional psychology today, a little bit more. I want you to look at these strategies again, go back to the original part one and really watch it and look for particularly the 555 routine description because it is, I promise you, it is probably, and I've said this last time, the number one strategy that people come to me, thousands of people over the years and come to me and say, this is the game changer in my life. This is what allows me to feel so much better no matter what comes my way later in the day. Anybody? I think the chat just popped up again, Amy.
We have one more nutrient dense snacks. This is what the person has tried, specifically omega 369 and blue foods.
Great. So I'm going to really focus on nutritional psychology today quite a bit because last time we talked about food as fuel, and I promised that we were also now going to look at food as thy medicine, which is a famed quote from long ago. And here is where we're going to get started with this. Okay. So, very often, lawyers in particular suffer from this burnout feeling. And what they don't realize is that it's equally from the kind of intense work that's done, equally with the kind of poor internal environment management. That's, the couple of those two things, the intensity of the work. Amy and I were also talking about, because I just did this program at Harvard Law School this past week. And what came up a lot was around vicarious trauma from work in my conversation with someone because of the cases and the people being represented, et cetera. You know the drill. Um, so the intensity of the work and the neglect of this internal environment and using food as fuel and medicine. Medicine, using the term a little bit loosely, but also actually, um, is so important. And here's why. Just look at this. Symptoms of poor brain nutrition and the symptoms of depression are identical.
Mm.
Identical. Because it's not just a psychological experience. There are people who are depressed psychologically for all kinds of reasons, and they may need medication. They may just need the opportunity to get support, and that's very valuable. But there's a whole other arena of what causes depression, and it's poor brain nutrition. And we don't often differentiate between the two until we figure out how to increase certain foods, folate, et cetera, you'll see coming up, improving our mood. So the symptoms are identical. Did someone, you can interrupt me anytime, Amy.
Okay, anytime. Okay, great. Somebody did ask, are there any nuances to the lawyer archetype combined with the challenges of having a toddler and baby? So
Oh,
examples, sleep deprivation from home life, breastfeeding demands, etc.
oh my goodness. Yes, of course. Of course. Of course. And so everything I give you is for you as a whole human being, not just as a lawyer, right? You need to be a whole human being who practices law. So when you have these demands on your physical self from interrupted sleep, and you're also producing nutrients for your child, right, through the breastfeeding element, and This is where you need to have very specific coaching for vagus nerve. For you're going to hear some of that today. Nutritional intake. I know you've heard that. You know, if you're breastfeeding, you should have gotten coaching around how to make sure that you have the nutrients you need for that. Um, to also replenish what you need yourself, right, for brain care. I'm not sure if I'm asking or answering the question that you're really looking for, giving you the answer you're looking for, but we can also, you can connect with me offline and we can dive into that.
We do have another quick question. Do you advise going ketosis and avoiding nutritional glucose?
Okay. So, so you really have to know what you're doing when you're deciding to go into a keto diet. And then you also, the same thing, I get the same kind of questions about intermittent fasting. So what's important is to learn about yourself. I'm generalizing the answer here, because some people don't even know what ketogenesis is. But so the most important element of stabilizing mood with foods, and this is what we're talking about today, right now, is to have stable blood sugar. And so you have to start to learn about yourself and pay attention to if the keto diet is working for you to metabolize well and to give you the energy sources that you need, then go for it. Do it. If you're starting to have increased anxiety symptoms or increased depression symptoms, or you have brain fog, or all, then it's not the right approach for you. Additionally, intermittent fasting, like for me, I appreciate intermittent fasting, how I feel when I do that, since I've been postmenopausal in particular. I'm 62 in a week. So since, for the last few years, I have been benefiting from intermittent fasting done properly, by the way. So that's, about 17 hours of not eating and then having your nutrients, your nutrient dense, smaller meals in that window of time that you eat. We're going to also talk about what not to eat or what to eat to have better sleep at night, too. So I just want to focus here, though, on these are the natural, and please let's remember that whole foods, not processed foods, are super essential to everything I'm talking about. We're looking at leafy greens and we're talking about complex carbohydrates and high protein, that's real protein. I think I may have said this last time, although I'm not sure when the new food pyramid came out. Did it come out after the first session? I'm not
It
sure.
was before.
It
It
was
was
before. So I
before.
probably referenced, but I want you to be very careful because now what's going to happen is all of these incredibly um, dominant food companies are going to start slapping the word protein on their packaging in big letters. And packaged protein is not going to give you what you need. Sorry. So eat your whole protein, antidepressant foods right there. Any questions about that? Research shows that 2 weeks of increasing folate, 2 weeks can improve mood. What's not on here is my favorite, and I just realized that. Kiwi, 2 kiwi a day are proven to elevate mood. 2 kiwi a day and help you sleep better. It's a great dessert at night. Okay, nutrition that creates anxiety. Now you're going to see on this slide that caffeine is mentioned twice. That's because caffeine doesn't just come from coffee, right? And so I want to make sure that you see that there's also just the other day on CNN and also on Fox, so competing networks, right? They were very excited to share that 3 cups of coffee can ward off dementia, right? So something came out. I didn't haven't had a chance to look it up, but we knew this already. It's not new news. I don't know where they got the 3 cups of coffee, but they were both stations were very excited to promote that. What I'm going to tell you is that strategic caffeination is important. When you first wake up in the morning, for example, you have this wonderful cortisol that is designed to help us enter into the day. It's meant to wake us up from a sleep state. If you can wait about an hour to an hour and a half after you've wakened, your cortisol will start to go down. Then you have your nice cup of joe and it gives you that little spike. Caffeine's not terrible for you. It helps you to, metabolize, rev your metabolism and gives you apparently great stimulant that helps to ward off dementia. Um, when it gets overused is when it creates anxiety. So here you can see that there's, on the in the lower left side of the screen, there's these different products. I don't know where they came from, but basically we're talking about caffeine infused foods. There are packaged foods that do that. They look like they're healthy, etc. Maybe some of them are, but I don't like anything in the package itself. And of course, all those beverages, right? Um, so nutrition that creates anxiety is really based on caffeine, which is a chemical, processed foods, which are chemicals, right? You're putting into your system, blood sugar spikes and crashes. So anything that's simple carbohydrate or loaded in excessive sugar. And then also blood sugar spikes and crashes come from skipping meals. Okay. So with that in mind, here's nutrition that calms anxiety.
So we do have a question going back to what you mentioned about the packaged protein. And this person asks, how is packaged protein different from protein derived from whole food, especially if the chemical composition is the same? So example, vitamin C from orange or vitamin C from a pill.
Okay, so let's use the vitamin C analogy. Vitamin C from an orange and vitamin C from a pill. When you're eating the orange, your body has a way of digesting, breaking down the food so that it absorbs the nutrients, right? When you take it in a pill, it tends to go through your system more. And as you know, those of us in the field know, most of vitamins that we take in a pill wind up in the toilet. So they don't get digested the same way as the foods, the whole foods that we eat. So what happens also like with protein powders, and again, I used to be very big in this whole fitness arena and learning about fitness products, protein shakes, protein powders, protein bars. There are very few that are true to label, number one. Most of the industry has a kind of hazy guidelines. So when
Mm.
you're buying something, I was told, and can see if that's changed over the last few years, that they only need to be 70% accurate on the label. So I will check on that, but that is the truth from a few years back. But I will look and see how they have potentially upgraded that. Um, so my point is, though, that when you have anything that they have put into a protein powder or a protein bar or a protein shake, they've had to process it and break it down in different ways. So it may, just like a pill, go through your system without being absorbed the way you want it to. There's also much more that I can talk with you about, not in this short period of time, about the nutrients that need to be eaten in combination so that they are better absorbed. And there's a lot of that with, vitamin D and K2 and iron needs to be with other things. So we can go into that more deeply. But for today, here's one of the best ways to help you with anxiety is to make sure, of course, that you have, your balanced meals and they should be smaller, not big, huge meals, but smaller meals spaced appropriately so that your blood sugar stays stable. You load, carbs are not your enemy. Complex carbs are a really good friend, in fact. Quinoa, I like the Japanese sweet potatoes, right? Magnesium rich foods, omega 3s, and of course, consistent fuel timing, right? Oops.
So there is a follow-up to that initial question about the packaged protein. That person asked, so the carrier is the functional factor.
The carrier is the functional factor.
So
So,
again, pill versus the actual orange. I think that's what that
right,
person is
right,
saying.
right,
That's the
right.
carrier.
So
Yeah.
it's our bodies were made to digest whole foods, right? Real foods, and we've gotten very innovative and are able to engineer foods right? Which are great because we have opportunities for people to have access to food that they may not have had before. The further away we get from eating whole foods, the further away we get from the way our bodies are designed to absorb the nutrients. So just keep that in mind. And yes, I believe in any packaging being the package that the food came in. So a shell of an egg is a great package. That's a packaged protein food that's rich with other things. So the mood elevating, listen, morning time is a great important time. And whether you first start eating at 11 a.m. like I do, or you have, food that you eat as soon as you wake up because that's the way you function better. Um, One of the best things to do is to start your day with a shake that can keep your mood lifted, give you the nutrients that you need. I don't know why the ingredients didn't show up on here, but I did have the ingredients on here for you. I can send that to you when we email things out. This is a great slide. So, if nothing else, you can use this as your reference. What energy? I have a whole little booklet that when people bring me into their firms or schools, I give them this booklet on snacks for the energies that you need and recipes for the energies that you need. I'm summarizing it here for you. What energy do I need right now? It gives you a food sample, an example, and a movement or a strategy that comes from my program. Again, if you have any questions about it, you certainly can email me and I will give you answers. Doesn't want to change so quickly. Moving on to mindset, and I know I have to check the time. Okay, we've got 30 minutes and I've got three more pillars of strategies. So, specialized mindset. Last time we talked about the 555. Last time we talked about how every human brain craves control, and the way the brain works to have control is through patterns, patterns and sequences that it can rely on. Um, what's really tricky is that we often don't have time to even pay attention to these patterns that our brain goes into autopilot with. And that's often helpful because we get to quickly make sense of the world and we quickly interact and we trust ourselves so often with things that are coming out of our mouth and the choices that we're making. However, this kind of anchoring in a pattern that we're not aware of can actually keep us stuck too. It can narrow our perspective of what's happening because our brain wants us to make sense of things quickly, and we miss out on potentially thinking about problem solving a little bit differently, more effectively, in innovative ways. Creativity can be thwarted, all of that. Um, we are living in uncertain times. And people might say that in every generation, but with what we have so rapidly changing with technology and everything that's going on geopolitically, things have always been there, but we have access to everything so much more easily. We are bombarded by stimulation and, news and, sound bites of all kinds. It creates greater uncertainty. And for our brain to be trying to track with patterns that help us, it becomes more challenging. So today, and you can interrupt if people are pinging on the, okay. So today we're going to talk about the meaningful mind and anchoring in uncertain times. So I don't know if you remember, and I need to have a caveat here because, when you go and you talk with these brilliant college students, law students in this case, this week, someone's always going to challenge you, right? With something. So I reference the fact in the first session here, and every time I talk with people, actually, that my program is grounded in neuroscience. And alongside the neuroscience, embedded in the program are these 9 incredible principles of how people in the blue zones have lived super well for longer than most people on the planet. The blue zones are where people they're all in different regions of the world, but they have a lifestyle that is grounded in these 9 principles of how they live, and it helps them to thrive throughout their decades, over 100 years. So someone said to me, well, didn't you hear that, that those numbers of how many people live over 100 is actually bogus because people were being fraudulent trying to get money for whatever reasons. And I looked it up. And in fact, I think it was last year or the year before last year, um, there was research that showed that there was some false data on the numbers of people living over 100 years old. That said, the principles of how they live is not false. The things that allow them to thrive is not false. So here, one of the principles is one small reason. We hear a lot about, well, you need to have your purpose, know your purpose. Everyone has a purpose. And that's lovely and wonderful, except that it also can feel very overwhelming and pressured. And so, what I love about this is that you may not be clear on your purpose yet, or you may not be clear on a purpose ever. Or you may want to change what you think your purpose is. You may have purpie, right? You may have more than one purpose. But if we focus on meaningful moments, creating meaning. And this goes back to the 555 strategy, by the way. If you remember from last time, otherwise I can, visit with you offline to tell you about it again. This is where really honing in on a meaningful moment or creating meaningful moments with the time that you have in the day that you're living can produce the serotonin and dopamine that calms the central nervous system, right? And it can be small, bite-sized, meaningful moments. There's no grand definition here that needs to be adhered to. One small reason is enough for today. And that is a mindset, a bite-sized mindset strategy here that I'd like you to just think about as you do your 555 and start your day. Where do you have a chance to really have meaningful moments in your day? And go get them, create them. In the times of uncertainty, we need anchors. Now, this is, along with nutritional psychology, where I have, you know, a huge number of strategies that I work with people on, specialized mindset has a large number of complex strategies that I give to people. Anchoring your brain when the future is unclear, being anchored allows you to reduce anxiety. It allows you to find really authentic, organic confidence, right? People talk a lot about, oh, you need to love yourself and you need to, and other people talk about this imposter syndrome thing. And there's all kinds of self-help and ideas about how do we make sure that we are clear and confident and loving toward ourselves. I neutralize this. I take because some people and myself included at times, this idea of self-love, like I love myself, but it doesn't resonate, it doesn't sit right. Um, it's not solid feeling or anchoring because then you have to grapple with what do I love about myself, right? And is that always consistent? This is an exercise in consistency that you trust about yourself. And so I'm just going to tell it to you. I'm not getting into all the steps that you see on this slide about personal mission statement. That's a bigger process, but we can talk about it if you want to. Email me, we'll create a session for you. Um, but we're going to talk about core powers, aligning with your core powers. So core powers, it's the only, really fluffy, corny thing that I talk about. Core powers are your values, beliefs, personality traits, and skills that you trust that when you're coming from any one or combination of them, you feel solid about who you are. It's so aligned. Now, the key to core powers, values, beliefs, personality traits, and skills is that you really should only have maximum 3 in each category that you trust so solidly about yourself. When people generate these long lists, I find out, not really, not all the time. Find 3. What do I value? What do I value about myself? What do I value about the world around me? What do I believe about myself? What do I believe about the world around me? Skills, more straightforward, personality traits. Go by what you know about your personality that you trust. You don't need somebody else to tell you about your personality that they like or trust, right? When you discover your core powers, again, this goes back to the 555, the morning routine. You can actually spend the 5 minutes that is designed around emotional or spiritual nourishment to connect with your core powers, to align with your core powers, to think about how your core powers are going to serve you in the day that you're entering. You know what's on your calendar, you know the conversations you have to have, right? And when you align with your core powers, when you remind yourself of what you're made of, that you trust about yourself, you're going to then have an easier time choosing the verbal and nonverbal uh, communication strategies that you use for owning your impact, right? For having that healthy control. So that is what it means to be aligned. And when we are aligned, our integrity is intact. When we lead with our integrity, fueled by alignment, we have a legacy day, right? This is what we all want, is to know that another day in the books of our legacy has gone in, right? Any questions? Comment?
No, no questions on that
Okay.
segment.
So we're moving on to movement. Last time, this guy over in the corner in that slide, did he dance for us? Right? Did I make him dance? Do you remember? Yeah, because movement is the movement that you learned last time is based on the 2-4-2 strategy. It's another one of my favorites, which is why I always give it for one of these kind of intro programs. 2 minutes of intentional movement for every 2 hours of focused mental work flushes out your cortisol, increases if you listen to music, your increases dopamine production. You go back to your desk less stressed, so you have capacity, cognitive capacity. And if you've listened to the music, you have dopamine infusion. So now you have enhanced motivation. Part two is about your vagus nerve, because what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Ready? What is your vagus nerve? Many of you may know already. The vagus nerve is that superhighway communicator that goes from your brain through your gut and then back up. The vagus nerve transmits the cortisol, the dopamine, all of that from digestion, the precursors up to the brain to produce the chemicals from the brain down to the gut. This is why sometimes when people are stressed, they have digestive issues, right? This is why sometimes when people are not choosing their nutrition in a way that serves their mood and their cognitive energies, etc., they wind up having anxiety or depression, right? Or those symptoms, right? So the vagus nerve controls neurocommunication. And you may have heard about many of these, you can find them all over the place on the internet, vagus nerve exercises to help you to regulate and tone your vagus nerve. You want to have a toned vagus nerve. The strategies are not difficult. And I'm going to tell you a true story about how I used it recently. 2 weeks ago, I was in Chicago. It was colder than it is here in New York, yes. That said, my family's going through a bunch of stuff. Just because I'm the expert in this kind of work doesn't mean that I'm immune to life happening on life's terms and it affecting me. So we are going through a big health thing with someone we care about deeply. And I'm in Chicago with my youngest child who was dealing with the news of this next level. And I needed to I felt it. I felt the sadness. I felt, the discomfort. I went for a walk on this boardwalk by myself and I was humming like you wouldn't, so loudly. I was humming. And I even went into, they use the word chanting. Up here, I use the word chanting, but it's more of a roaring. Ah, I didn't care. I didn't care who heard me as I was walking. And I can tell you right now that I felt relief when I came back inside. It was the combination of the cold exposure, because yes, Chicago was very cold, and the toning of the vibration. Okay. So these are things that we need to do to have healthy control of our internal environment. Most people don't take the time to condition their vagus nerve, and it is a central communication pathway for stress, right?
So I'll just jump in. Somebody said the vagus nerve is the nerve boxers try to activate with a liver punch.
Ooh, I didn't know that, and it sounds very scary, right? I guess it can make you pass out, probably, right? Ooh,
So I also just want to mention for our viewers, if you are interested in learning a little bit more about the vagus nerve, Dr. Tracy Myers did a presentation on the polyvagal theory. So that's something that you might want to watch as well. And also what I find very interesting is we did a presentation on anger and managing anger in the
yeah.
moment, as well as moving forward. And a couple of the things mentioned here were on that list, but it was one of the things that stand out was the cold exposure.
Hmm.
So in that moment and managing the vagus nerve, again, he talked about, Dr. Sean Healy talked about splashing cold water on your face. Going outside now is the perfect time. It's so cold and there's lots of snow out there. But anyway, so this is very interesting. It's playing into what we've also talked about in other presentations. Um,
Yes. Go ahead.
one other quick comment I'm seeing my daughter has hummed since she was a baby. She's 11 now and does it when she's focusing on something.
Interesting. So she has probably enjoyed the benefits of that kind of self-stimulation. I'm sure she has no idea why she's doing what she's doing, right? Because why would she know? Um, but it's a self-stim. It's a self-stimulation she learned about as a little one, which is a good thing, right? As long as it doesn't interfere with other things that she has to do in her day. So, um, one thing I wanted to share with you about this also is these are great things to do at night when you're trying to do. I talked about in the session one about having a routine for sleep quality so that your brain knows when to go to sleep, right? 15-minute routine. These are great things to do as part of that pre-sleep prep to help your vagus nerve relax and tone. The facial massage, hot shower followed by 10 seconds of really freezing cold. Always check with your doctor before you do something like that. That's my caveat again. And the breathing. I'm a terrible breather. I know this, and I was a pro athlete, and people always said, "Why aren't you breathing?" I'm like, I don't have to. But breath work for vagus nerve toning is really, really important. And there's so many videos out there on Instagram and TikTok and all that that you can actually follow. And they're not wrong because it's not complicated, right? These things are not complicated. It's kind of like Whole Foods shouldn't be complicated. These kinds of behaviors aren't complicated. They don't take a lot of time. We just don't remember to do them. But we remember to brush our teeth, right? So how did that happen? Habit. Okay, 15 minutes. And we're on the final pillar here. Digital detox, somebody talked about, and dopamine dating, nobody talked about because I redefine that. So let's just look at digital detox for a second, okay? Um, when I speak at law firms and I speak with law students, they look at me like I am nuts when I say, you've got to really figure out how to disconnect from technology. Start small if you need to. Start with 30 minutes a day, right? Which is actually considered significant, but start with 30 minutes a day or do it like I love doing a full 24 hours. It's incredible what happens. It's not just about, oh, this feels good. It is really important to do digital detox every day for a period of time for our wiring to reset. Okay. Um, so digital detox is uh, best to do at night. It's often tricky to do at night because people feel very pressured at night to get everything done. And it also includes television. So what I want you to know about digital detox is twofold. One, and again, maybe I said this last time, but it's worth repeating. So when I go into these big law firms or even, boutique firms that I work with where there's smaller numbers of people, there's always a group of people, not together. I'm talking about there's always a good number in the big law firms, and there's usually one or two in the boutique firms who say, "Oh, on Sunday mornings from this time to this time, I am not available because my family and I go to church." Or from Friday night to Saturday night, I am not available because I celebrate Shabbat. Or from this time to this time, every day I go to an AA meeting, so I'm not available. Or sadly, from this time to this time, I have chemotherapy or some kind of medical intervention that needs to be done. We don't want you to get to a point where you're safeguarding your time and availability and your energy to be because you're sick or because you need extra help. Everybody could, if they choose to, decide what their Sabbath is, what their sacred time
Mm.
is. It doesn't have to be about spiritual or religion. I'm just using that as an example. Define your time that is untouchable, right? To work demands, to outside pressures of other kinds. Focus on what really matters most meaningfully. There's the meaningful moments in your life. So digital detox is important for us in order to really take a step back and make sure that we are fully engaged and enjoying this life that we're living um, off screen, right? That's my little lecture. Sorry for the lecture. Dopamine dating. Dopamine dating is there's a common phrase that it's a phrase that's being used out there differently than what I mean. So dopamine dating in the singles world apparently means going out with people to get a quick hit of wow, she's hot, he's hot, whatever. And maybe even, that dopamine first date kind of sparkly feeling, right? That's not what I'm talking about. Maybe that's good. I don't know. But for me, dopamine dating, when I talk about it, could be with just yourself, by the way. And it could be with a significant other or a friend. But here's what it is, and it's really valuable. And this happens in our relationships, whether we've been married a long time or in a relationship for a long time, whatever it is, we can get so in that pattern of how we do things cognitively and interpersonally, um, that the minute we start to have a conversation, the cortisol level goes up because we're already anticipating the stress that the other person's going to say, whatever they're going to say, right? And it compounds. Dopamine dating is about not talking. Okay, now I'm a therapist that's telling people if you have a significant other, sometimes you don't have to talk. Okay. And even if it's with your friend or just yourself, it's about immersing into a whole experience that allows your dopamine to flourish. You can talk afterwards. Talk afterwards about what that was like to do together, whether it's with your friend, your child, your significant other, or just yourself. You can reflect on it. But what you want to do is like these examples of this is going through for a walk in the park in nature and letting yourself be fully immersed in noticing everything that's going on. Nothing to do with another person, nothing to do, like just you immersed. If you're walking with another person, great, but it's not about talking about it as you do.
Mm.
Okay. Um, there's a lot of opportunities in cities. For example, in New York, there's all these immersive art exhibits. You can go to any art exhibit. You can go to a concert. You can go to an event that it basically a play is a good one. It does make you think more. It's not always dopamine production, but art exhibits, concerts, anything music related, anything nature related, hiking, all of that. Sensory immersion is what we're looking for. It fortifies the production of dopamine. Dopamine is our motivation energy. It also gives us an opportunity to take a rest from critical thinking. And
Mm.
too often we're critically thinking because of the work that we do. So that to me is what dopamine dating is all about. And now, with everything that we talked about, and I know it was high level because you can't get too deep into this stuff in this period of time, you have a new blueprint to go along with the first blueprint. If you put those blueprints together, you've got a neuroscience intelligence based lifestyle. And that's what my hope is for everyone to understand how important it is to generate a lifestyle that cares for their internal environment, regulating their central nervous system so they can be the best that they want to be, so they can enjoy life fully, so that their EQ and their IQ get to serve them well, right? Um, this is the blueprint for today. Any questions about it?
So I don't see any questions coming in just yet. Again, I'm sure it's going to take some time for people to
Yep.
write this out.
So while you're writing out questions, please, comments, questions, anything you want to ask. We have a few minutes left and I want to be able to answer you. I do want you to know that I'm working on retreats in New Jersey, New York, and Massachusetts. I have one-on-one coaching very limitedly for people, so I take on very few one-on-one people, but I have some, slots for that, and the way I do it is different than a therapist would. It's not ongoing. Um, and anybody who's part of Lawyers Concerned for Lawyers and attended this webinar gets a discount for any program you bring into your firm or your school. And also, Andrew Blatter, JD LCSW in New York, is somebody I work with on some of these seminars because with him, he was a former Big Law partner for many years. With him on board, he still has his active license. We easily get the CLE credits that people also like. Okay, now I'm seeing some things in the chat.
Yes, yes, a couple of
Okay.
comments. So the series has been great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Somebody asked, please briefly describe benefits of the retreat. And then just really quickly, you talk about concert. What about listening to music at home, going to a movie? So let's
Yeah.
first, I guess,
I'm
address
going to
the
start with the
benefits.
last one first. Ready?
Okay.
So the last one first. So yes, you can create an incredible immersive environment in your own apartment. Of course. So you can put on the music. You can have, great smelling candles. You can um, dance right in your living room. You can do this by yourself. You can do this with your loved one. Just don't talk. That's the rule, right? Let yourself really be free in the experience. Um, the second, now going backwards, um, remind me what that was because I know the other one
Um,
was about the
just,
retreats.
yeah, describe benefits of the retreat. Yeah.
There were two before this one, but
Oh,
so the benefits
well, the
of the
person,
retreat, say it again.
just the person had asked about concerts,
Oh,
listening to music at home, and going to a movie. That's an interesting one.
I say no to the movie part because movies are life stories, like they're stories, and like just when you're reading a book, also why that might someone might say, well, isn't that immersive? But what happens is that your brain gets triggered into all kinds of memory patterns, right? So you're watching a movie, you might have fear, you might have love, you might have all these things that bring up um, different memories into your from your memory bank, and that doesn't generate the dopamine that we're looking for.
Mm.
It could be a bunch of different things. The retreats. So right now I love collaborating. So I have these brilliant people that I'm collaborating with to really make a rich dynamic experience. A retreat um, will be that a full day experience of and it is an experience, not just an educational experience but a practical one too, where people will be able to use some of the strategies right then and there that we craft different personal mission statements, et cetera. We really get involved and engaged in making sure people have what they need for this lifestyle that we're talking about. Plus, having people come in from who are great chefs to do nutritional psychology,
Mm.
meal prep and cooking with us and all that kinds of things. So it's a great way to reset how you think about living your life.
So one of the things I think people do struggle with, and we do have a couple more questions, is actually taking the time to cook healthful meals, the
Hmm.
whole food meals, and preparing it in advance. Any suggestions
Yep,
on that?
I got lots of those. So first of all, there are places, lots of places that have foods already cooked that are just whole foods, right?
Mm,
Um, so there are Trader Joe's is pretty good about that. You can get lentils that are already cooked, ready to go. You just heat them up. They're just plain lentils, right? They're beets that are already cooked, ready to go that you just, chop them up and put them on your salad. They have a lot at Trader Joe's I love because they have a lot of cost-effective ways of saving time and money to get and also getting the nutrients that you need. So the other thing, of course, you've heard this, I'm sure, is just pick a day and make that a few hours of prep for the week. So,
mm,
for example, I like to hard boil eggs because they're transportable. They're the greatest to me. They're the greatest uh, nutrient dense snack when you put it, especially on like a super dark pumpernickel or a grainy bread if you eat bread, and if you don't, then you can put it on greens, and it's a nice salad too. Easy to transport, so I hard boil up a dozen eggs that lasts for 3 4 days. And then also sweet potatoes, same thing. If you don't want to use a microwave, you can just put them in the oven, have them ready to go for the next 3 days. Um, there are individual oatmeal packets, individual nut packets, like there's all kinds of things that are just pure plain and individual servings of that you can put in a briefcase and take with you. Um, in terms of food prep, there's also food prep services if you want to spend the money on that and you don't have time. There's really very little reason why you can't have whole foods, healthy meals, very little reason why you can't have that in your life. So if you want more recipes and all that kind of stuff, I have the book. It's not a book, it's a PDF that I do, but just reach out to me and we can figure that out together.
excellent. Again, just lots of positive feedback. So somebody did ask about staying updated or learning more about when the retreats will be. I would
Great.
imagine going to your website.
The website will have it. I will do this for lawyers concerned for lawyers. I will make sure Amy has information on retreats. There's going to be some that are just for women. There are going to be some for everybody. Um, and right now, New Jersey is where we're setting up the first ones, and then we're going to look at Massachusetts also, Boston. So you'll have the information. I'll make sure Amy has the information, and you can always go to my website.
So I know we're right at 1 o'clock. There is, I think, a really good question for folks that can stay on for a little bit longer. And Ava, if you can stay on a little
Yep.
bit longer. And I think this is an interesting one. Somebody was asking about rotisserie chicken. And I wonder about that too, because I would imagine some of them have preservatives or something maybe added to them. So I don't know. You tell us.
Well, guess what? I don't know what preservatives they would put in a rotisserie chicken because I don't think they need to. I don't think they can. They take a whole chicken. I mean, I'm not a great cook, but I can tell you, and I don't eat chicken. I'm a pescatarian, but they're putting it on a spigot. They're spinning it around, right? So I think the thing that I would look out for with a rotisserie chicken is the spices and stuff that they put on. How much, what are they putting on? How much salt are they adding? Salt is good for us, but not in abundance, like excessive amount. Um, but I think rotisserie chicken, if you want that, I think that's probably a greater option than most other kinds of prepared foods in Stop and Shop, for example. right?
Excellent. Excellent. One more question. And again, I know we do have to go, but somebody was asking for the ingredients for that breakfast shake.
Yep.
It looked pretty good. So,
It's pretty, I can tell it to you right now, and I'm going to send it to Amy. So basically, it's yogurt or a vegan milk source that you prefer. Yogurt I like because of the um, fermenting of the yogurt, right? And then it's blues and purples, whatever blues and purples fruits that you want. You can put in the kiwi that I mentioned to you before that helps with mood. And you can add a nut butter if you like that, right? But banana is also good. I have so many people saying to me, "Isn't banana so high in sugar?" And they're the people who also want to have the chocolate chip cookie later in the day. I'm like, really? Dude, don't worry about the sugar in the banana. It's got the potassium that you need too, right? So it's basically a blue and purple and throw in greens. Blue, purple, green, right? You can throw in the spinach. I forgot about that. Kale is good too. Kale sometimes adds bitterness, spinach does not. So that's a great starter to the day. It's also a great snack later in the day.
excellent. Well, I think again, we are over time. And so I do appreciate you spending that extra time. Thank you all for joining us. Again, you will receive a copy of the slides and please know again, part one was is currently on our digital library, so you can watch that if you missed that one. And Ava, thank you so much. Clearly, there's tremendous interest in this topic, and it's about wellness and improving our mood. We know that being a lawyer, working in the legal community, is a tough job, and so I think these are wonderful ways to make sure that again we stay well.
Thank you.
So
And I really do encourage you. You can email me anytime and I will respond to your questions or your comments. So don't hesitate, okay?
excellent. Well, thank you again for joining us. I'm going to pause the recording. So